Welcome, everyone. Jumping on tonight because I think a lot of people, and most Americans suffer with anxiety a little bit. And a lot of people have ADD, ADHD type symptoms. And kind of wanted to get into that because you're not alone. A lot of people suffer from these things. And sometimes anxiety and the overthinking can be so overwhelming. And sometimes even debilitating and crippling. Some people are so anxious that they can't leave their house, that they can't function on a daily basis. It's hard for them to go to work. It's hard for them to accomplish things. And then the racing thoughts just go a mile a minute. And it's one thought after another, and it's just nonstop. And it's like the same loop over and over and over again. And how do you stop that? How do you stop that obsessive thinking and that constant thinking? And what are some of the options that you guys have tried? I actually met with a patient today, and it was astronomical on all of the things that this poor woman tried. And she actually did a test, and it was a brain scan, and it was by a doctor in Illinois. And I guess he's known for like ADHD, and he can kind of diagnose that and figure things out and whatnot. So, and I guess insurance doesn't cover the scan. And she literally paid $5,000 to have the scan done because this poor woman has been like suffering with ADHD and anxiety for quite some time. And she's done like all the things. She's done acupuncture, she's done like yoga, breath work, she's done energy healing and all the things, even Western medicine. And she hated being on, like anxiety meds because she had ADD or ADHD and anxiety at the same time. And it's like with that, what comes first, the chicken or the egg? Because if you have anxiety, you have racing thoughts, and sometimes it's hard to complete things. And then if you have ADHD, a lot of times anxiety is coupled with that. And so, like, you typically go hand in hand in a lot of cases. And so this woman was telling me, like, on all the things that she's done, and $5,000. Like, I still like I wanted to drop my IT. And I was like, well, and I was thinking to myself, and I asked her, I'm like, please tell me that they like gave you more than a diagnosis of ADHD. Because she already knew that she had that. And she goes, no. I was like, so wait a minute. I kind of was dumbfounded. I was like, so you did this test? And she goes, yeah. And she goes, they told me everything that I already knew. And I was like, so I guess they could pinpoint like, okay, that, with on your brain scan, we can tell that you have anxiety. And she goes, well, yeah, kind of like, duh. $5,000. And I was like, did you find any other information? She's like, no. I spent $5,000 to be diagnosed that I had ADHD. I was like, wow. And she goes, well, they told me that, there was some supplements that they recommended, and things like that and whatnot. But it didn't work. So I said, okay, so you spent $5,000 on this. And she goes, and then on top of it, like the follow-up appointments were I forgot exactly how many, but a couple $100 or more per visit. That was the follow-up appointments. It was like, so $5,000 for this brain scan to tell you what you already knew. I said, did they give you a root cause? Well, the reason why I have anxiety is because the ADHD. I'm like, yeah, but did they give you a root cause of why you have the ADHD? And she looked at me like I had like five, like there's a root cause. And I'm like, yeah. And she said, no. I said, oh, it's like $5,000. I was like, wow, not to sound goofy, you know, crap, I'm like not even a fraction of that much. And we can get to the root cause. So we're going to kind of get into some of that. So root causes of ADHD. And for anybody who wants to know or doesn't know, or like what's the root causes of anxiety and ADHD and things like that, we're going to get into it without you spending $5,000 on a test that's not going to give you results, which to me is just mind blowing. I mean, like, not to sound goofy, you know, what could you do with $5,000? Lots of different things. I can tell you that right now. And I'd rather spend that money on something that's going to get me to the root cause. And at least I'd get results from it, but not. And that's just it. You know, as being a nurse and a nurse practitioner, a lot of times it's all Western medicine does. It gives you a diagnosis, but it never gives you the reason why. Okay, so you have acid reflux, so or you have heartburn or whatever, and you get a scope and well, you have acid reflux. Okay, well, pardon my this is yes, I am gonna swear. So if you cover your ears, but no shit, Sherlock. If I have, heartburn, and whatnot, yeah, I got acid reflux, or yeah, I have gastritis. Yeah, no kidding. Thank you, Sherlock Holmes, for figuring that out. Not to sound goofy and not to sound mean, but kind of already figured that out. But why do I have gastritis? Why do I have acid reflux? Okay, you're telling me that I have heartburn because I have gastritis and acid reflux. Well, no kidding. And that's like usually what a lot of all the diagnostic type, you're spending lots of money on these diagnostic testings, but you're not getting to the root cause. So, ADHD, anxiety, what are the root causes? Well, one of the things, and what I find is there's your nervous system, and you have two parts of the nervous system. You have your rest and digest, which is your parasympathetic. This promotes healing. This promotes good sleep. This promotes, good digestion. You can't be all wound up and be able to digest your food properly. And then you have your fight or flight or your sympathetic, and this helps you keep awake, keep you alert, keep you, on your toes, which you need that too. Like we need both parts of the nervous system to be functioning optimally. Now, at different parts of the day, certain parts should be more in gear than the others, let's say. You don't want to be handling heavy machinery if you're sleepy. So you kind of want to be on your toes a little bit. You kind of want that sympathetic nervous system to kick in. And at the same token, you don't want that sympathetic nervous system or your fight or flight to be kicking in when you're trying to fall asleep. So there's what we call nervous system switching in muscle testing. Nervous system switching is when there's confusion within the nervous system. That's when one part of the nervous system is on when it should be off, or vice versa. So they're confused, they're flipped, they're switched. So you can be wired but tired. You're really tired, but you can't fall asleep because you're going a mile a minute. Your brain just will not shut off, and you feel like your adrenaline is going a mile a minute, and it's late at night, and yet you're tired, but yet you are wide awake and you can't go to sleep. Or you take a medication or a supplement, and it gives you the opposite effect. So, kids with caffeine, normal people, and not saying that anybody with ADD or ADHD is not normal, but like normally, the nervous system, when it's functioning optimally and it's not switched, you take caffeine and it increases your energy and it gets you a little bit wired. Somebody with ADHD, you give them caffeine, it calms them down and they can focus better. It doesn't give them the jitters. Or, most people, you give them Benadryl, it makes them really, really groggy or sleepy. But with somebody with ADHD, or like when their nervous system, not necessarily ADHD, but when their nervous system is switched, it makes them anxious or hyper. So you can have an opposite reaction to medications or supplements. So they're wired but tired, or they can have opposite reactions to medications or supplements. Or let's say you are on a healing, like you're with a practitioner and you're on a holistic health journey and you were feeling really, really, really good and you were detoxing and things like that. And now all of a sudden you don't feel so good. You feel like poop. And your symptoms were getting better, and now they're not getting any better. They're getting worse. That can be also a sign of nervous system switching. Okay, so that's one part of the equation. So that explains, in a lot of cases, ADHD, their nervous system is switched. But let's dig a little bit deeper, guys. So why is the nervous system switched in the first place? If I just stop there, that's me like doing a diagnostic testing and leaving it at that. Let's dig deeper. So why is that nervous system switched? And what causes that? Lots of different things. Some of it is heavy metals and heavy chemicals. So toxins. Toxins can completely cause nervous system switching. It's an irritant to the body and the nervous system. Where do we get toxins from? Pretty much just about everywhere and everything. Okay, from our deodorants to perfumes to our lotions to our shampoos to our shaving gels to our cleaning products to the Febreze to the laundry detergent to the artificial food that half of us are eating, to medications, to over-the-counter supplements, to your Tide Free and Clear. If we actually look on the ingredient list and not just the label, there's a lot of hidden garbage in all of these things. So we inhale them, we ingest them, they get absorbed through our skin, which gets into our bloodstream and into our organs. So these are some of where we get the toxins. We get them from the air pollution, from the air that we breathe. Some other things that we get is from food intolerances. Maybe we're eating foods that is causing inflammation within the body. And yes, that can upset the nervous system as well. Some common stressors, food intolerances, not food allergies, guys, not just these do not necessarily cause hives or tongue swelling or lip swelling, but these are foods that cause inflammation. And what I see mostly in my office is grains. So grains, grains. So things like corn, oats, wheat, rye. I don't know if I said oats. Spelt millet. Yeah. White rice, brown rice. Soy. That's not a grain, but soy. Sugars. Even honey. Some people cannot tolerate honey. So honey can be another one. Fruit sugars can be one. So, milk, dairy, not in all cases, but some people, a lot of people test better for raw milk than pasteurized milk. Certain eggs or where the eggs come from, that can cause an irritation too. Nightshade vegetables is another one, especially with people with thyroid issues. See that a lot of times in people with Hashimoto's and just regular thyroid problems and hypothyroidism is nightshade vegetables can be a big trigger for people. So these are food intolerances that just cause generalized inflammation within the body. Immune challenges can also trigger the nervous system to become switched. So think of parasites. They're more active at night too. Um, so if you have racing thoughts, if you have insomnia, your symptoms are worse at night, might be parasites. Lyme co-infection, candida, mold. These can all cause irritations within the nervous system. So those are the root causes. So we want to get to the root causes. We want to not just give you a diagnosis or say whatever. We want to find out, okay, well, great, you have a diagnosis, but why? What's causing that diagnosis? Because your body does not wake up one morning and say, I don't feel like functioning. No, give me a break. Most people develop symptoms later on. Why? Because the body got exposed to that stuff. Well, Tracy, but what about the babies that were born with certain issues? Okay, let's look at that. So, do you think that if mom or dad has parasites in their system and they go to conceive a child, do you think that those parasites could possibly be passed off in utero? Do you think that parasites can be passed off? And not to say that you can't, breast is best from a holistic standpoint, breast is best. But do you think that parasites can't be passed off in breast milk? They can. Do you think that if baby has a food intolerances and mom is eating certain foods that baby can't handle, do you think those food particles, or I don't want to say proteins because you might get mixed up, but you know, but yeah, food particles, food proteins, um, don't get passed in breast milk? Yeah, they can. And guess what? That can cause inflammation within baby. If mom has certain heavy metals in her body, maybe from deodorant, maybe from previous vaccines, maybe from, I don't know, whatever. Do you think that these cannot be passed down in utero? They can. So we want to look at all the things and even why babies have certain issues. But typically, unless that's the case, most people, you wind up with symptoms later on. And your body doesn't wake up one morning and say, I don't feel like functioning. There's a reason for it. And a lot of times, by the time you get diagnosed, these symptoms and your body's been already trying to signal to you for quite some time. And hey, I will be 100% admitting this, a lot of times, unless the symptom is severe enough or really starting to impact our daily to day living, we ignore it. We ignore those symptoms until our body forces us not to, until we can no longer ignore it. Like the headache that just happens once in a while. Or, oh, I just get this upset stomach once in a while. Or, I just have anxiety just around my period. But after a while, then those symptoms are not just once in a while. Then before you know it, if you really look back, Oh, it was once a month, and now maybe I get them twice a month, or I get that particular symptom, you know, now weekly, now a couple times a week. Or maybe it's not even that. Now maybe it was very mild when you got it, and now it's more severe. Or maybe it's a combination of frequency and severity. So a lot of times, like, our symptoms like creep up and to the point where we can't ignore it. And that's when we finally do something about it. And then by that time you go to all the testing. So, like, I don't know where you guys have been at, or like what things that you guys are suffering from, but like, who has gone to the doctor and they've done all the testing? They've gone all the diagnostics, they've done like the scopes, the blood work, and they get diagnosed with some issue. And then their only option is medication. Well, there's more to it than just that. So we want to kind of look into that a little bit more, just saying. And so we want to kind of find out the root cause. So a lot of these, like I said, with ADD, ADHD, and things like that, um, there's an underlying cause, especially with anxiety. And usually there's also other things that we find in the office, including hormonal imbalances, even if you have normal labs. Because just because the lab is normal or your TSH level is normal doesn't mean it's normal for you. We find a lot of hidden imbalances in my practice: estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, cortisol levels, thyroid hormones, even neurotransmitter imbalances, which can so play a factor on how you feel, anxiety levels, sleeping functions, and things like that. And these are a lot of times correlated together. And then again, hormones are produced by a particular gland. And so we want to find out which gland is quote unquote misbehaving per se and not functioning as well as it could be, and then the underlying cause, while we give support to your hormones naturally. So, how do we do all this? It's a lot of stuff, and it doesn't cost $5,000. I can tell you that, to test all this. So, how do we do this? We do this through a technique called quantum nutrition testing, and it can be done in person or virtual. So, how is it done in person? Well, in person, we actually use acupressure points. So every single organ has its own set of nerve endings that go to the skin. How do I know this? Well, two things. Number one, when I was a cardiac ICU nurse, I would put heart monitors on every single person. Those electrodes from the heart monitor were put on your skin, and then those pick up nerve impulses from the heart that are on the skin. And then we get the heartbeat on the heart monitor, and then I can tell you, oh, you're in sinus rhythm, or you're having a heart attack, or you're in AFib, or whatever it is. Well, we know that every single organ has its own set of nerve endings that go to the skin. They've also done MRI studies to show this, that acupuncture points are a real thing. And then I use those acupressure points to help figure out which organs are functioning optimally, which ones are not, and if they're not, then the underlying cause. And what I like about this technique is I'm comparing you to you. When we do blood work, we're comparing you to everybody else. And again, what's normal for one person might not be normal for you. And this is why, like, a lot of patients will go, well, I went to the doctor, but my blood work is fine, but I feel like poop. Okay, just again, if your blood work is fine, you should be feeling in perfect condition. And a lot of patients will say, well, no, I don't feel like I'm in perfect condition, and the doctor wanted to put me on medication. Okay, well, if your blood work is fine and you feel like poop, that's not adding up. Like, if your blood work is fine and you feel good, you should not need medication. If your blood work is fine and you don't feel good, something is being missed. That doesn't make any sense. If you have perfect blood work, you should have no symptoms. So this is why I like this test, because I'm basically comparing you to you, not you to your neighbor, not you to your best friend, not you to your mom or your sister. Like, literally, we're using your body to ask, hey, are you happy? And if not, then why? Is it Lyme? Is it parasites? Is it mold? Is it candida? And we do the biggest parasite challenge in my office. So whoever poops out the biggest worm and sends me a pic gets a prize at the end of the month. And then I get to post and I leave the patient's name anonymous unless they want to share it with me. But otherwise, then we leave the patient's name anonymous, but I do share the pics and I go over, like, hey, what symptoms do they have? And then that gets posted on Facebook or Instagram or whatever. So we want to look for the underlying cause. And then once we find the underlying cause, then we can use the same technique to find out exactly what supplements that person needs. So, like the patient that I had mentioned before, who had anxiety and who had ADHD, she did this $5,000 test to be told that she already has ADHD, which she already knew, to be told that she has anxiety, which she already knew. And then they gave her, like, quote unquote, a protocol. And she goes, it didn't work. I didn't feel any different. Well, not that protocols are necessarily bad, but here's my take on it. So a protocol means that every single person needs the same set of supplements, the same dosage for the same length of time. That's not the case. Your body's unique. You can't tell me that everybody with anxiety needs the same, even if we went with Western medicine, every single person with anxiety needs the same medication. No, because each person is different. That's why there's so many different medications. That's why there's so many different blood pressure medications. Not everybody responds to blood pressure medications the same. Well, same thing with the supplements. And it doesn't mean that holistic health doesn't work. It just might not be the right combination for you. And this is where I like quantum nutrition testing, because we're literally using that same technique to find out exactly which set of supplements your body specifically wants and how much. So it's literally a tailor-made program for you. Okay, Tracy, but you said that it can also be done in person or in virtual. You just explained on how it's done in person. So how do you do it virtually? Now, here's a little bit more of a wonky thing. And do I fully understand how this works? Heck no. I just know it works. So I'm going to try to break this down as easy and as simple as possible. And hopefully this makes sense without sounding too out there. And it's probably going to sound too out there for a lot of people. But here we go. So first off, I'm going to take you back to Science 101. Okay. So physics. All right. Everything is made up of energy. Einstein knew about this way back when. So E equals mc squared. Energy equals the mass times the speed of light. In there is no distance, because distance has nothing to do with energy. That's physics. Okay, but still, how do you do this, Tracy? You just gave me like I already know E equals mc squared. But how can you do quantum nutrition testing virtually? Okay. So I don't know your belief system. Okay. And I'm going to try to explain this as much as easy as possible as well. So I don't know your belief system, but I believe in God. But whether you believe in God, the universe, or even if you just believe that we all come from dirt and from the earth, whatever your belief system is, we can all agree that we come from the same source, no matter what your belief system is. And if that's the case, and we all come from the same source, on some level, we are all connected. Now, have you ever thought of somebody and all of a sudden they called or texted you? And you're just like, "Oh my gosh, I was about to call you," or you had a client, or a work partner, or, a customer or a patient or whatever it is that you do that you haven't seen in a while, and you thought of them, and all of a sudden they either showed up in the hospital, they showed up through your door, or they called and needed like a product or whatever it is. Has that ever happened to you? Or your best friend, you were thinking of them and all of a sudden they called or texted you. In a lot of cases, a lot of you may shake your head yes at this. Okay. So you picked up on their energy, whether you were aware of it or not. How are we talking? How are you able to see this video? I'm talking on, through to the computer, and somehow my voice is being recorded and being put all over the internet. There's no wires involved. Or how do you send a picture halfway across the country? Like literally, if you take a picture with your phone and you send it through a text message, like stop and think about that. How does that picture go flying through the air to the cell tower, flying back through the air to somebody else's phone? That's radio frequency. That picture gets all jumbled up into a million pieces and somehow gets put back together. And then you get the picture on your phone. That's energy. And to me, it makes more sense that two living beings who are connected on some level can pick up on each other's energy easier than it is for me to send a picture halfway across the country. To me, that's like my mind hurts. So, quantum nutrition testing is based on the premise of quantum physics. Start looking up some quantum physics, and it's becoming more and more known. So, and it's becoming more, and people are actually now, I don't know if they fully understand quantum physics, but it's becoming more of a reality, and people are studying it more and more. So quantum nutrition testing is based off of that premise. So I've just taken a lot of workshops to be able to do this, but every single person can actually do this. You've done this, whether you were aware of it or not. When you thought of somebody and somebody called or texted you, that's basically what this is. No different. We've just taken a lot of workshops, but every single person can learn how to do this. So we use that premise of quantum physics to be able to do this long distance. I actually have patients across the country. Do I still fully understand on how this works? No, I just know it works. So whether you live in person or virtual, this can help figure out the underlying causes. And it sure as heck is not $5,000 like a $5,000 scan. Now, so what does a consultation cost? Good question. So the consultation to do a quantum nutrition health scan is 2 appointments. Each appointment is an hour long, again, whether it's done in person or virtual. So it's 2 hours of professional consultation time. And we started doing an MVX Plus test, which if you are interested, I will put a link on from YouTube that I did explaining what MVX Plus test is and what the results are. But it's a blood work that is pretty darn accurate, and it helps to figure out, and it goes along with and enhances quantum nutrition testing, and it helps figure out toxicity, infection, inflammation, the chances of a mortality incident over the next 5 years, malnutrition, mitochondria, kidney function, liver function. So, and it's a really, really good test. They've actually done studies on it over a 10-year period on over 300,000 patients. So you get the 2 one-hour appointments, so 2 hours of professional consultation time plus the blood work. Normally that's 350, but this month till the end of the month, it's 129. 129 for the blood work and the 2 appointments. If you would like more information, please call 708-694-4092, or I will put a link in where you can sign up for your initial consultation. Have a wonderful night, guys. Talk to you soon.